In our series about the challenging world of work, we will look at 3 critical actions. In this program, we'll look at home working and what is needed. We start looking at the benefits and actions needed by employers. Today, I'm talking to Dr. Tony Miller, international consultant on productivity and change. He has worked with most of the top organizations in the world in 36 different countries. He's the author of 26 books and numerous white papers, all available on Google Scholar. Dr. Tony Miller, welcome.
Thank you very much, Graham.
So, home working, what is it? And first, what's in it from the employer's point of view?
Well, the employers have got the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of making huge amounts of money out of home working. And I think it's very, very important that we separate fact from fiction. You know, if you talk to the managers and the supervisors in an organization, they'll all tell you it can't possibly work, complete waste of time, and nobody will do any work. Now, if you look at the fact and the published papers on this, which have only come out late 2020 in this year, the surveys show, in fact, that home working does produce improved productivity. And the big study was done with a company called Airtaskers. It was reported in the Harvard Business Review, and it showed that workers were working an extra 1.4 days per month. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that if you've got a big organization, you're going to get a big amount of productivity for absolutely no extra effort. So the two things that will fall out of that are, you've got more work being done by the same people, so you don't need as many people. There are other case studies that have been done, and they reflect that if you're a home worker, then you don't need supervision, and you certainly don't need as much management. So then you've got another big thing dropping on top of that. So from a cost savings and benefit point of view, the savings are massive. Last year, the banks, who are always very, very cautious about what they say, reported at the World Bank Forum that the benefits they had already received from home working were a significant amount.
And
when everything else is... Sorry.
We should clarify as well, when we say home working, it doesn't necessarily have to be the home. Remote working might be a better term.
No. You're absolutely right, Graham. It is remote working, and I'll talk a bit about that a bit later on, I think, because that needs to be clarified. So what other things can organizations get from home workers? Well, the first is, of course, reducing office space. You don't need as much office space. And the figures that are being published this year on office space are absolutely amazing. You've got Facebook saying that they're going to reduce their office space by 75%. HSBC globally are reducing their office space by 40%. JP Morgan are going to reduce their office space by 40%. And there's a very, very large financial organization in the UK that's just announced that 14,000 of its workers will not be returning to the office. So there you've got another huge financial benefit. Then if you want another one, you've got employee costs. Now, if you look at employment history, employers, including myself and you, I would imagine, have always said, we have to travel into work. That's why we're late. We have to buy these rail cards. We have to run a car. We have to do all of these things. But you don't anymore. So it is a massive saving for the employer, because they can reduce your average salary cost. Yeah. Now, for workforce planners, and they're the only ones that will probably understand this, you can reduce what's called the employee standard unit cost factor. It runs at times 2 at the moment. And what we believe that's going to come down to 1.5, which is a huge, huge saving across the organization. So less management, you've got reduced office costs. These are all massive, massive savings that employers can pick up on now. The last one that employers will have to do is to look at things like their contracts of employment for employers, because clearly those working at home will have a very, very different contractual arrangement. And that's good for both parties, I think. But in some countries, I'm thinking probably the Middle East, and certainly, some of the richer countries in Africa, will really have to rewrite their employment law, because what they've got now just doesn't work for remote workers. So there's all of those things to look at, and the big beneficiary, massive beneficiary, is the employer.
Hmm.
Those that are smart enough to have got onto this now will reap the benefits very, very quickly.
There's a lot in it for the employee as well, isn't there?
Oh, certainly there is. But it depends what type of employee you are. Are you the sort of employee whose glass is always half full? If you are, then what you're going to see is an opportunity, a huge opportunity to work differently, and also to get something which we call a nice life balance, because you can decide when you want to work, where you want to work, and it is a massive opportunity. If you're the other type, the pessimist, who are still waiting for the horse and cart to return, then they will be praying that everything will go back to pre-COVID, to the good old days, when we can get back to going to work and knowing where we stand. Well, that just isn't going to happen. And it's not going to happen because on top of COVID-19 and the implications that that's bringing about in society, you've got a massive, massive drive coming from artificial intelligence. So that's just not going to happen. So the employees, I think one of the nice things for employees is this business of flexibility.
Mm.
You can start work whenever you like. I mean, I'm a crack of dawn starter. I'm often working at 5 o'clock in the morning. By 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm virtually brain dead. And so, a standard working day never ever has worked for me. And when I was employed as a director in the last company I worked for, I would never ever attend evening meetings. As far as I was concerned, that was it. The brain cells had gone to sleep. I was ready for the land of Nod. So it gives you that flexibility. You can start when you like, you can finish when you like. Also, as you said, it's remote working really. So where do you want to work? Do you want to work in Starbucks, go and get a cup of coffee, sit there and work all day? Do you want to sit on the beach in, anywhere? Bournemouth, Bermuda or Barbados? It's all absolutely in your hands. The other popular place, of course, is public libraries. Nice and quiet, just got the odd tramp sitting in there having a rest. But you've got loads of space, loads of resources, and you can really, really concentrate. You don't have to be at home. Or you can build a small office in your garden, in your house, whatever you want to do. Travel time was always a big issue. Oh, I've got to travel to work. Oh, I've got to get through the traffic. Oh, the train's not running on time. If only you knew how stressful it was getting to work in the mornings. Well, you don't have to do that now, do you? You can chill out. You can walk around the house casually dressed. You don't have to worry about anything. So you're going to be paid less, but actually, if you look at the total package and your life balance, you'd be much, much better off.
And what type of people would make the best home workers?
Well, believe it or not, we know this exactly. And it will have to be reflected in future recruitment policies and how you recruit people. There are a number of large personality profiles, and that's where the secret lies. The McRae and Costa is sometimes referred to as Ocean, and sometimes referred to as the NEO. And the thing we're looking to measure on there is O for openness. So we want people who are reasonably open to doing things differently. So they're the people that we want to recruit. Also, we want people who are high on the C scale, which is conscientiousness, because they're the people that will settle into home working very, very well and will diligently work at home or remotely. The last thing you want is a neurotic extrovert who will always find something else to do and always have an incredibly good reason why they haven't done their work. So we can actually profile people with a massive amount of accuracy. Now, this isn't new. I mean, Google have been doing this for years. When they employ people to work at Google, they have people who are high O, so they're open to change and want change and are trying to make change happen. And they want people also who are conscientious. That's why Google doesn't have any managers, supervisors, and rules and regulations. So you can profile the people you want, and you can, fill the organization up, particularly the home working side, with the right type of people.
Let's talk about equipment then. What kind of equipment do you need to be a home worker?
Well, you've got to have the City of London behind you, and that costs so much to build. You can't imagine how much the model of Big Ben cost, the Union flag, and St Paul's Cathedral, and not forgetting the Gherkin. So that setup behind me is just, obviously it's just the background. Some people are working at home, won't feel comfortable with people seeing in their homes, and all you do is just drop a background on the back if you're going to be doing broadcasting as we're doing now. And this is a trend that's just rocketed off. Everybody now seems to be doing either stuff for Facebook, stuff for YouTube, using all of the different platforms that are available. The microphone side is quite important, and I think you're the best person to advise people on the microphone kit that they're likely to need.
Yeah, well, I've been a home worker for over a year now, and I work from home. This is my recording space that I have at home. And if you are either recording or you want high quality sound with video conferencing like this, if we still call it that these days, that sounds like an old-fashioned term for what this is now. There are two basic types of microphone. There's a condenser mic and there's a dynamic mic. I could get into a lot more detail on this, but there's no need, except all I have to tell you is that condenser mics are extremely sensitive and dynamic mics are not quite as sensitive. Now, this is a really well-treated space, but most people won't have a space like this. So if you have a very, very sensitive mic and you're in a regular room that maybe have a bit of echo in it, that very sensitive condenser mic is going to pick up all that echo, and you don't really want that. A dynamic mic is going to be a lot more forgiving for a normal room in a house or a flat. I actually use a dynamic mic even though I have a well-treated space, because I just like the way they sound. But there's a condenser mic and a dynamic mic. You want to choose the dynamic mic. On top of that, there are two different ways to connect mics to your computer, and there are two further levels of microphone there. There's the USB mic and the XLR mic. Now, a USB, you're probably familiar with USBs. It's how you plug just about everything into your computer these days. An XLR connection is a connection that looks like this. This end is the end that goes into the microphone. This is an XLR lead. This is the end that would go. And as you can see, that is not a connection your computer can accept. No, so you need to plug that into an audio interface, which is another box you have to buy. So you really do, to simplify it, you just want to get a good dynamic mic that connects via USB, and then you plug that straight in the computer, and then you're all set.
That's exactly what I've done, Graham, on your advice.
And you sound great.
What you didn't warn me was how much it all cost.
Yes, it's not cheap.
It all works. The thing is, it all works,
yes.
And it is part of the thing to do today. The other thing about, I think, we ought to mention is that there is a line of thought now, and we've picked this up from America, which is UYO, use your own. There is an assumption now, and certainly in the Western world, that everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has a laptop or a tablet, and everybody has a printer. So it's not really incumbent on the employer to provide you with all this equipment. It is expected that you have it.
Mm.
And that, I don't think that's unreasonable. So you can use your own kit at home. Now, the IT people in big companies will throw a wobbly and say, oh, we've lost control. Yeah, well, you've lost control, mate, and you've probably lost your job as well. So, it's just a different way of working. So I think in the Western world, I can't think of anybody I know who hasn't got all of that equipment already. So all you need in addition, as you've just said, is your microphone and perhaps a backdrop if you're a bit sensitive about people looking around your house.
There are virtual backdrops in a lot of Skype has virtual backdrops, Zoom has virtual backdrops, so you could do that for free. But the microphone, you should really get a good one. But the thing to remember is it's a one-off cost. It's not every month. It's just a one-off. Once you set, you set.
That's right. That's right. It's interesting to note if you look at Apple, because my phone's Apple and my laptop's Apple, their sales went up by 54% this year. And that, I believe, is a direct result of people gearing up for home working. They're all upgrading their laptops, which isn't particularly necessary, but it's a bit of a comfort factor. I've got a new laptop, got a new phone, I'm ready for home working. And that's something that, obviously individuals are doing.
Do you think we would have been going this way anyway and COVID has accelerated it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely. Where we were going, we were being driven, certainly in 2019 and a little bit in 2020, by the rapid advent of artificial intelligence. So it's going to happen anyway. But COVID-19 has really pushed homeworking into top gear immediately. And what employers have really discovered is that most of their organizations were overstaffed. Now, I know that to be true because I do work in that area. And I boldly go where no man has been before and tell organizations, you're 25% overstaffed. And they always go, oh, that can't be possible. The managers say that, if we cut one person out, the whole organization will collapse overnight. It will be the end of the world. And what we found during COVID-19, that's just not the case at all. And if you go into the public sector, well, you're going into fantasy land, really. They have so many people, particularly if you go to the Middle East. Go Pakistan, India, Africa. They have so many people. I was going to use the word employed. So many people sitting around. You just can't believe it. You can't believe that anybody could spend most of their life doing nothing. But the organization is full of them because the managers have told the top management they must have them. Really, really essential. And we know that's not true.
From my point of view, from being a home worker,
acceleration.
Yeah.
Sorry.
From being a home worker, one of the things I've noticed about, because I'm definitely more efficient than when I worked in London in the office, because we had an open plan office, which basically means you get interrupted all the time. You can't concentrate. Where you work from home, you can just shut the world out, and because you find a time when you know you're not going to be bothered, and you can just concentrate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If I had to give a bit of advice to somebody who is going to be working at home, I think it's very essential that you keep an hourly time log. So at the end of the day, you can see how many hours you've worked and what you've been doing your work on. Now, this isn't a minute by minute thing at all, but certainly every half an hour you ought to write down what you've been doing. and just keep a daily time log and do it by hand. You don't want to be stopping what you're doing, opening up Excel and then doing it. Just jot it down by hand. And that really helps you to focus on what's important and what you've done. Then if somebody comes along and said, well, what are you doing all week? You know, you've got it there.
Yeah, yeah.
The biggest issue I've had as a home worker, and I've been working at home and in the office, but quite a lot at home, for a long time, is to stop people calling, because they assume that if you're at home, you're not working. And you really got to get that sorted out. Once you've done that, you know, you've got the ability to work at home. I used to use a hotel in, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I used to use a hotel in Chelmsford. As long as you buy a couple of cups of tea and something to eat during the day, it's fine. So I used to sit in this very, very plush lounge, and I used to see clients in there, and it was just like an extension of my business. It was very, very nice. So, you know, as a remote worker, you've got to find the place that works for you. The beach was never ever for me. I mean, I couldn't never do the beach.
Yeah, there's a lot of distraction at the beach. Let's be honest.
True.
Yes, Dr. Tony Miller, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Graham.